Johnny Doughboy found a rose in Ireland.
In Ireland.
Sure the fairest flower that Erin ever grew.
Oh, the Blarney in her call took him back to old New York.
'Cause his mother spoke the sweetest Blarney too. Johnny Doughboy found a rose in Ireland.
In Ireland.
And she stole his heart with smiling eyes of blue. He said, darling, 'tis my duty to make an American beauty of a sweet Irish rose like you.
Just like you.
Good evening and welcome to the 2 weeks ending August 1st, 1942. And tonight we are going to listen to Glenn Miller's Moonlight Serenade, NBC News, the Tommy Dorsey program, This Is Our Enemy, and Lands of the Free. It all begins in just a little bit. If you love learning about World War II from the point of view of those who lived through the war years, you might want to check out our Patreon page, World War II on the Air and in Print, Old Time Radio, and News. There you will get a complete daily and near-complete Sunday newspaper as we go through the war day by day. You will not only get the newspaper, but you will get radio programs from that same corresponding date. The radio shows can be listened to or downloaded singly or in a larger file representing that day. You will not only get the newspaper and Old Time Radio, we do the top 10 song countdown every Saturday, share documentaries about where we are at in the war, movies that were in the theaters at the time we are reliving, and last but certainly not least, veterans interviews. Once in a while, we will also share radio and newspapers that are not from the war years. The page is set up in 2 tiers with 1 week free trials. The $2 tier gets you just the daily radio programs. The $5 tier gets you everything. I'd suggest a free trial for the $5 tier so you can get an idea of what we have to offer, and then before the week is finished, decide which tier you prefer or canceling at no cost. Once again, that's World War II on the Air and in Print, Old Time Radio, and News on Patreon. The link is in both the description to this video and in the comments section below. Hope to see you there for the duration. One thing I didn't mention in that spot is that we are featuring movies over on Patreon now. So I am no longer uploading movies on this channel. They are going to be over on Patreon for your viewing pleasure. Also, we have a second channel. The second channel's name is News Dispatches, Historic News Dispatches. Pretty simple. I'll have a link for that in the comments section as well if you want to check that out. They're really 5-minute, not really videos because there's no picture other than the description of what you're hearing. I also want to thank you guys on 5,000 subscribers. I'm always humbled when this channel reaches a milestone, or when one of my channels reaches a milestone. The first hour of programming today is going to feature 2 big band programs and a newscast, sandwiched in between. We are going to start things off with Glenn Miller's Moonlight Serenade from July 16th, 1942. Some great big band music. I think Glenn Miller just came out with his second film. What was it called? I think it was Orchestra Wives. Was his second film, was just hitting the theaters right around this time, and that would be a big deal. There were some great numbers in that, such as I've Got a Girl in Kalamazoo, and I think Pennsylvania 65000 was also in that movie, but I could be wrong. I haven't seen it actually, but I do think it's up on YouTube. Unfortunately, it's in a colorized version. And then after Glenn Miller, we have NBC News from July 18th, 1942. We're going to continue to see what's going on in the war. And then we have the Tommy Dorsey program. Tommy Dorsey is just coming off of his big hit, Sleepy Lagoon, that went to #1, I think, for 2 weeks in the summer of 1942. So if you love big band music, this first segment is for you. Let's turn on this old tube radio. That's our time machine, and go back to the summer of 1942.
Smoke the cigarette that satisfies. It's Chesterfield time. The favorite cigarette of Uncle Sam's fighting forces, and you folks at home, brings you Glenn Miller's Moonlight Serenade. Now, come on in, Glenn.
Thank you, Larry. Chesterfield greetings to all you listeners. Tonight we salute the U.S. Army Air Base at Santa Ana, California. And this being Thursday, we'll name the winner of last week's radio combination. First, though, here's Skip Nelson and the Modern Airs with a swell tune for you to light up and listen to. Our record arrangement of Sweet Eloise. Eloise is so lovely to love, and you will agree
she's the only girl that you're dreaming of.
But you'll be wasting your time,
'Cause Eloise is all mine.
so don't you give her a line, 'cause Eloise is all mine.
Today you hear more and more of your friends saying, for just what I want in a smoke, there's no better cigarette in the world than Chesterfield.
It's great to be an American, live in the land of the free. Yes, sir, it's great to be living in the land of the free. And now a word with you folks at home. Each week we pick 3 camps, and to each of them we send a gift of 50 recordings. The camps vote for their favorite tunes, and the tunes they pick are the tunes we play for them on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Now, after you've heard our 3 camp salutes, pick the tune you like best, write it on a postcard, and send it to Chesterfield, Box 21, New York City. And the camp or camps whose tune gets the greatest number of your votes wins Chesterfield's special award, a beautiful radio-phonograph combination. Tonight we salute the Army Air Base at Santa Ana, California. When those prospective bombardiers, navigators, and pilots got together, they decided that Jersey Bounce was tops with them. So for the second time this week, Jersey Bounce. Camp Sutton, North Carolina, and the Army Air Base at Santa Ana picked the Jersey Bounce. The Marines at Parris Island, South Carolina, like 1 dozen roses. They're 2 swell tunes, so the rest should be easy. Just pick the one you like best, write it on a postcard, and send it to Chesterfield, Box 21, New York City. And now here's last week's winning tune. Yes, sir, that's it. You're always in my heart. And it sends a radio combination to the men of the Yankee Division up at Camp Edwards, Massachusetts. Congratulations, boys. You won the closest contest since we first asked the folks to join our parade of postcards. We hope your new set brings you lots of pleasure.
For that freckle-faced kid I'm hurrying to. I'm going to Michigan to see the sweetest gal in Kalamazoo. My bid for that freckle-faced kid I'm hurrying to. We're going to Michigan to see the sweetest gal in Kalamazoo. Zoo, 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 zoo.
Kalamazoo and the wind-up of this week's Moonlight Serenades. We'll be back next Tuesday, same time, broadcasting from Eastwood Gardens, Detroit, so be listening for us then. In the meantime, join our parade of postcards tonight. Send your vote for this week's most popular camp tune to Chesterfield, Box 21, New York City. Now, just one more thing. You know, everybody that smokes Chesterfields likes them.
Larry Brough speaking.
Good morning, everyone. Here's a roundup of the latest domestic and foreign news. This morning finds the great battles along the Russian front continuing. An on-the-spot report is brought to us now direct from the Soviet capital as we switch to Robert Magadoff in Moscow.
The resistance of the Red Army is stiffening to the south of Milerovo. Sensing this and fearing that their breakthrough toward Stalingrad and Rostov might be bottled up, the Germans have worked up their pressure to a fury of fire and metal. Their tanks and divisions are surging forward despite heavy losses. Hundreds of bombers are raiding Russian positions and settlements behind the lines. Parachutists are landing in the Soviet rear. Cities and villages are perishing in flames, and acres of this year's bumper crop are devastated by fire and tanks. But the Russians are not taking it lying down. Hundreds of their own planes are counteracting the Luftwaffe. Land troops are constantly harassing enemy flanks. The Red Army even launched 2 counterattacks yesterday, striking with such force that the Germans were compelled to withdraw in one sector. On the main, however, the Russians are still on the retreat toward new positions, but at a much slower pace and hitting back with greater force. At Voronezh, the Germans continue to dig in the face of determined Russian counterattacks. The Red Army yesterday recaptured a number of settlements on the northern approaches to Voronezh, while near its southern gates it routed the 75th German Infantry Division. Violent fighting continues in the region of the city itself, where the Germans are contesting every street and every house. For instance, it took the Russians a whole night of heavy fighting to capture a 4-story building. 2 German battalions resisted to the last man, resisted even after the first 2 floors were in the hands of the Russians. Voronezh now is half ruined. Its population has been evacuated. Some of its finest buildings have been reduced to ashes. Goodbye from Moscow.
And for the news from Capitol Hill, we turn to Richard Harkness of the Washington Bureau of the Philadelphia Inquirer, who reports from our nation's capital.
Washington's biggest war story comes today from Alaska. The Japanese have taken another one of the Aleutian Islands. This time it's Agatu. Just what the Japanese want with Agatu isn't clear. The island is 750 miles west of Dutch Harbor. Our military men didn't think it was worth defending, but the Japs thought it was worth taking. It is significant, perhaps, that military experts call the Aleutians the back steps to North America. Operations on the Alaskan front are hidden in fog today, a fog that covers that section of the Pacific this time of year, and a fog of censorship, too. But this much is known. The Japs are paying a high price for their conquest. American submarines and bombers have sunk or damaged 13 Japanese warships. They've shot down 7 Japanese planes. Developments in Alaska are likely to have repercussions here at home. The Senate Military Affairs Committee wants to investigate. It wants to send a delegation to the northern frontier to see why our Army and Navy permitted the enemy to gain a toehold. If the Senate approves money for the probe, it will be the first time that Congress has taken a hand in the conduct of the war. The Army and Navy wouldn't call it taking a hand. They'd call it meddling. While the country is puzzling over Alaska, it becomes plainer than ever that we plan to win the war in the air. The War Department is organizing the world's largest and most powerful airborne army. Before long, we'll be transporting our fighting men to world fronts in giant planes and gliders. The new Army branch already is underway. It will be called the Troop Carrier Command. Special training will be given in transporting parachutists and infantrymen to theaters of operation. General Arnold, Chief of the Army Air Corps, is calling for volunteers. Washington is looking to the White House today to see what Mr. Roosevelt is going to do about wages. The problem was laid on the president's doorstep the other day when the War Labor Board gave little steel workers a raise of 44 cents a day. Now the CIO is out to get more money for every one of his 500,000 members working in steel plants. So the problem is right on the president's lap. The wage situation is expected to cause the president to send a special message to Congress next week on inflation. He probably will ask for legislation to stabilize the country's payrolls. Also, he may ask Congress for additional power to clamp down on farm prices. Also, there may be a presidential request for money to keep subsidies to keep the cost of living from jumping sky high. The House winds up 3 days of debate on the tax bill this afternoon. Under House rules, the bill can't be amended. But Representative Knudsen, a Republican from Minnesota, wants to send the measure back to committee with instructions to lower the stiff war tax on American business. The news carries a smile sometimes, even these days. Out in Indianapolis, John Zazes is suing the Republican State Committee for $8,000. The Republicans bought 67,000 whistles and 500 horns back in 1936 to welcome Alf Landon to town, and Zazes never got his money. And that's all from Washington.
And now to David Anderson in Stockholm.
Hello, New York. This is David Anderson speaking from Stockholm. News from the Russian front today is anything but encouraging. If we accept the German claims to have cut the railway line from the Donetsk region to Stalingrad, east of the Donets, and last night's claim that the Germans are now in possession of Voroshilovgrad, then it seems as though the German intentions are pretty well outlined. Again, citing German reports, the line now seems to extend from Kursk to somewhere in the region of Voronezh, then it extends southeastwardly toward Boguchar. In the region of Milarova, the line seems to divide, one swinging southeastwardly, east of the Donets, and the other in a wide circle via Voroshilovgrad to Taganrog. If you should outline these theoretical lines on a map, you will soon discover that the evident German intentions are to encircle the Russian forces in this pocket. It'll be recalled that the Germans began an offensive in the region of Taganrog several days ago, but little has been heard of the progress so far. It is possible that Russian resistance in this region proved to be too strong for any rapid progress, and that the Germans have preferred to make their drive on Rostov from the rear. In other words, by driving southwestwardly from their positions east of the Donets. If this plan as outlined turns out to be correct, then it is evident that the Germans have chosen to create a favorable starting basis for their offensive into the Caucasus, without carrying their eastward drive as far as the Volga. If the Germans succeed in capturing Rostov, their chances for opening up their drive into the Caucasus are extremely bright, particularly now that the Russian supply lines from central Russia to the Caucasus have been cut. Also, the Germans have now had time to bring up reinforcements into the Kerch Peninsula, and so their drive could be started simultaneously from two different points, one at Rostov and the other from across the Kerch Strait. With a new situation that seems to be developing on the Russian front, the Germans and Italians have been trying to excuse their ineffective activity in North Africa. They say now that the fate of Egypt depends on the fate of the Caucasus. If the threat to the Caucasus becomes critical, say these Axis spokesmen, then England cannot concentrate her efforts on the defense of Egypt. When that time comes, they continue, then it will be Rommel's time to strike with the new reinforcements which he has received. In this total war, the steps from the Russian and Egyptian fronts to the Finnish front is not very great. The recent American action in ending Finnish consular activity in the United States is one based on diplomatic grounds. And yet, the so-called Finnish surprise expressed at this action is understandable when one considers present-day Finnish mentality. It is perhaps the same kind of surprise which they expressed when the British came with their declaration of war. At that time, high Finnish diplomatic circles told me, quote, "Our strategic line is just about reached, and a little more patience will clear up our part in the war," unquote. Yet what we find, the so-called Finnish strategic line is apparently not yet reached, and here it is 8 months since the British declared war on them. This is David Anderson returning you now to New York.
Our news roundup continues from the critical Middle Eastern theater of war. We take you now to Cairo.
Hello, New York. This is Grant Parr speaking from Cairo, Egypt. In the big armored battle fought Thursday on the Alamein front, 25 enemy tanks were knocked out by British tanks and field pieces. To make sure that they would never see action again, British sappers afterward blew up and completely destroyed 21 of these tanks. Fighting continued today on both sides, and every side appeared reluctant to involve their tanks. From the northern sector, the Australians and some South Africans drove southward and took two ridges. Then the Germans counterattacked and retook the southernmost ridge. The action continued on the ridge which the Aussies had first occupied. Enemy truck-borne infantry attacked Indian positions on the central ridge, but the Indians drove them off. These operations leave the Axis forces in the pocket, which has not caused them much concern, and the pocket has grown a bit tighter. Major General Louis Brereton, veteran of America's air war in the Philippines, Java, India, and Burma, is now in command of the United States Army Air Force in the Middle East. In the 36 days our Air Force has been in operation here, it has carried out 21 tactical missions that have involved actual attacks running into three figures. Bombs have been dropped by the scores of tons. Concentrating on Axis convoys and Axis supply ports, the American Air Force has been out both on night raids and high-altitude precision bombing day raids. Some of its jobs have been highly dangerous, and there have been losses, but they have been surprisingly light. 3 bombers have been lost by enemy action in the Middle East. We have suffered no further casualties. The Americans have shot down 5 enemy warplanes, mostly Germany's crack fighters, the Messerschmitt 109. Last night, American heavy bombers thundered in over Tobruk Harbor just at dusk, both on the destruction of Axis ships and the vital cargoes of munitions they are bringing to Marshal Rommel. The big bombers got several direct hits on a large motor vessel and set fire to an oil tanker. Nearby in the Gulf of Bamba, other Americans raided Axis supply boats. This is Grant Farr in Cairo, returning you to New York.
And now to London for the report of John McVane.
This is London. Military quarters in London today say the main fighting in Egypt is centered on the important Rawasat Ridge. The Germans are anxious to recapture it. In the south, it's said there's only patrol activity, probably on a larger scale than we were accustomed to before the present battle opened. A lone German raider bombed and machine-gunned a town on the south coast of England this morning. Casualties are said to be about a dozen. There's continued evidence here that the British will take a firm line with the French naval vessels in Alexandria if the necessity arises. The authoritative London Times says that if the need does arise, the removal and disposal of the French ships must lie with Britain and no one else. The Times says of Laval's orders to Admiral Godefroy that it is odd, if not disturbing, that Laval should be allowed to communicate with a French officer in a British naval base. There's been some anxiety here about the fact that the American government tried to negotiate with Laval about the ships, which are governed by the, not by the armistice terms, but by the arrangement between the British and French admirals. The London Financial Weekly, The Economist, today points out that trucks and other vehicles are reaching Rommel through Tunisia, so Pétain is really giving direct military aid to the Axis. The Economist traces the various American offers to Vichy on the subject of the French Navy vessels, and notes that only at the end of the offers did the United States decide Britain would be justified in sinking the ships if an attempt were made to hand them over to German control. The Weekly calls the incident striking evidence of a state of mind that might have very dangerous consequences if ever the military needs of the United Nations were to come into sudden and violent conflict with the authority claimed by Vichy. The Labour Daily Herald today asked that Mr. Eden go to Washington to straighten out with Mr. Cordell Hull coordination between the State Department and the Foreign Office. Some British commentators are remembering today is the 6th anniversary of the beginning of the Spanish War. In that war, the Axis openly tested the war methods they're using now. Yesterday, I heard Jan Masaryk, the Czechoslovak deputy prime minister, recall the horror that most people felt when German bombers blasted the unprotected Spanish village of Guernica. As the position seems here, Spain is not fighting openly on the Axis side for only one reason, her internal weakness. There have been persistent rumors that Spanish territory is being used for German air and U-boat bases. What is certain is that Axis agents in Algeciras, just across the harbor from Gibraltar, use Spanish territory as a constant observation post. This is John McVane in London, returning you to New York.
This has been a roundup of the news with Robert Magadoff from Moscow, Richard Harkness from Washington, David Anderson from Stockholm, Grant Parr from Cairo, and John McVeigh from London. For the latest news, keep tuned to this station. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Several Sundays ago, we tabbed a certain tune as a comer and warned you to watch it for development. Well, the song has come on like gangbusters since then, and we think it's due for a really sharp rise. Here's our version of Just As Though You Were Here. Oh. With Frank Sinatra, the Pied Piper, sharing honors in the vocal department.
Each morning, and I'll promise to laugh. I'll say good morning to your old photograph, and I'll speak to you, dear, just as though you were here. When purple shadows start to welcome the dark, I'll take the same old stroll we took to the park, and I'll cling to you, dear, just as though you were here. So don't be afraid that distance and time will finally tear us apart. The farther you go, the longer you stay, the deeper you grow in my heart. Each night before I wander off into sleep, I'll bring to life the tears I buried sweet. Then I'll kiss you, my dear, just as though you were here. Before I wander off into sleep, I'll bring to life the tears I buried so deep. Then I'll kiss you, my dear, and though you're gone, my love for you goes on, darling, just as though you were here. Today, everybody's talking about production lines. Well, here are some by Vincent Humans. They're the lines of a song called Hallelujah from the production Hit the Deck. Having given it an A1 priority arrangement by Cy Oliver, we put the job in the hands of our swing shift for swift assembly and immediate delivery. Build it, boys, and remember, Donald Nelson will get you if you don't swing out.
Folks, remember the palmy days of the 1930s BP before priorities? When you could trade the family flivver in on a brand new cream and chrome job without a thought of tires or gas? Well, as you bowl along, you probably hummed or whistled stray stanzas from the tunes that are on your memory medley for tonight. Tunes like Who, that Frank Sinatra's going to sing, and Three Little Words, Joe Stafford solo.
Say, TD, don't forget the letter for this week.
I was just getting around to that, Josie. Well, folks, here's a letter I got from a soldier in Atlanta, Georgia. A soldier who signs himself Johnny. He writes, Dear Mr. Dorsey, last week I met a young lady at a USO dance. Well, my heart stood still. Her name is Louise, and she is a Dorsey fan, too, so that gave us something in common right from the start. Would you please play for her and for me, My Heart Stood Still, on one of your memory medleys? Thanks in advance and good luck. Well, good luck to you, Johnny, and for Louise and yourself, we're including tonight our special memory medley arrangement of My Heart Stood Still.
Stole my heart away. Makes me dream all day. Dreams I know can never be true. Seems as though I'll ever be blue. My happiness. Would I answer yes to? Well, you ought to guess who. No one but you.
Friends, will you do me a favor? Stop right now and ask yourselves this question. What is going to win this war? Will our armies in Europe or our Navy in the Pacific win it? Will the assembly lines of Detroit and other cities off which rumble tanks in every increasing numbers win it? Will General MacArthur in Australia win it? Well, of course, the answer is that it will take all of these things put together to win this war. But it's going to take more than that. It's going to take sacrifice on the part of every one of us. We must stand ready to sacrifice to the cause of democracy, whatever that cause requires of us. And right now it requires money. And it's up to us to make the necessary sacrifice to raise that money. Our government is asking us to invest at least 10% of our entire incomes in United States war bonds and stamps to meet the quota of $1 billion per month that it has set for us. Now, that's not much of a sacrifice for us to make to help preserve the things that so many Americans have sacrificed their lives for. So let's all pitch in and let Uncle Sam know that he can count on us to invest regularly in the future of the American way.
You'd better get up and do it now. You'd better get up, my friend, and how? The land that you love the best is asking you to invest with a personal request from Mr. Morgenthau. Dig down deep to buy the bonds that buy the tanks, bombers for our fighting Yanks. Dig down deep to buy the bonds that keep us free, to fly the sky, the land, and sea. Dig down deep. Put your hands in your jeans, Mr. Citizen. Everybody must do his part. It's the easiest means, Mr. Citizen. Show the world we finish what we start, so dig down deep. The boys are giving all for you, so the least that you can do is dig down deep.
Well, our Chicago visit is about over, and Frank Sinatra, Joe Stafford, Ziggy Elton, Buddy Rich, and the Pied Pipers all join me inviting you to be with us next Sunday when we broadcast from Cleveland, Ohio, where we'll be playing at the Palace Theater. Meanwhile, this is T.D. Tommy Dorsey saying so long for T.D. Treasury Department and telling you that the money you invest in United States war bonds and stamps is fuel for the fire that will eventually cook Hitler's goose.
Sunday Evening with Tommy Dorsey has come to you through the cooperation of the Blue Network and is dedicated to the United States Treasury Department. Sunday Evening with Tommy Dorsey will be broadcast next Sunday at the same time from the studios of the Blue Network in Cleveland, Ohio.
Recorded it. Frank Sinatra sings it, and its title is Blues in the Night.
Mama done told me when I was a knee-pan. My mama done told me, son,
woman of sweet talk and give you the big eye. But when the sweet talking's done, a woman's a two-faced, a worrisome thing who'll leave you to sing the blues in the night. Now the rains are falling, hear the train a-calling, ooh-wee. My mama done told me, hear that lonesome whistle blowing across the trestle, ooh-wee. My mama done told me, a-hooey, da hooey. Oh, clickety-clack, echoing back the blues in the night. Thanks, Tom. I got the blues in the
Somebody loves me, I wonder who, and I'm worried who she can't be worried me. To every gal who passes by, I shout, ooh, baby, maybe you were meant to be my loving bed. Baby, somebody loves me, I wonder who. I wonder, baby, maybe it's you.
Now, friends, once more we come to that spot that we set aside each week for the old chief himself. Tommy Dorsey and his trombone saluting America's Hero of the Week.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to make it a double salute. First, to that very worthy gentleman, J. Edgar Hoover, for Mr. Hoover and his entire organization, and for a very special hero of my own, my mother. I'd like to play an adaptation from the Largo movement of Dvorak's New World Symphony. Piggy?
Tommy Dorsey's salute to the hero of the week, J. Edgar Hoover. Largo. Hey now, friends, this is just one of those occasions when Tommy takes the halters off the whole darn band, and the result this time will be swing high.
My name's Henry Chop. That was some great music on that Glenn Miller program and that Tommy Dorsey program. And I'll bet you rolled back the rug and you were dancing, right? Doing that jitterbug. There is still more to come. In just a little bit, we are going to listen to, two propaganda programs. This is Our Enemy and Lands of the Free, so stick around. If you love learning about World War II from the point of view of those who lived through the war years, you might want to check out our Patreon page, World War II on the Air and in Print, Old Time Radio and News. There you will get a complete daily and near complete Sunday newspaper as we go through the war day by day. You will not only get the newspaper, but you will get radio programs from that same corresponding date. The radio shows can be listened to or downloaded singly or in a larger file representing that day. You will not only get the newspaper and Old Time Radio, we do the top 10 song countdown every Saturday, share documentaries about where we are at in the war, movies that were in the theaters at the time we are reliving, and last but certainly not least, veterans interviews. Once in a while, we will also share radio and newspapers that are not from the war years. The page is set up in 2 tiers with 1 week free trials. The $2 tier gets you just the daily radio programs. The $5 tier gets you everything. I'd suggest a free trial for the $5 tier so you can get an idea of what we have to offer, and then before the week is finished, decide which tier you prefer or canceling at no cost. Once again, that's World War II on the Air and in Print, Old Time Radio and News on Patreon. The link is in both the description to this video and in the comments section below. Hope to see you there for the duration. Now we have 2 propaganda programs. What's interesting about this summer when all the big name radio programs are off the air, such as Jack Benny, Fibber McGee and Molly, Fred Allen, and Lux Radio Theater and the like, they were replaced either with musical programs such as Tommy Dorsey that you heard earlier tonight, or propaganda programs, which these next 2 are great examples of. The first one we are going to listen to is This Is Our Enemy from July 26th, 1942. And this episode is titled Race and Education in Germany. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Then we're going to follow that up with Lands of the Free from July 27th, 1942. This episode is titled The King's Counting House. Well, I wouldn't really call this a propaganda series so much as it is an historical docudrama type of program. Sort of in the vein of Cavalcade of America, if you are familiar with that series. So let's turn on this old tube radio, that's our time machine, and give this stuff a listen.
1 out of every 3 American men between the ages of 20 and 65 is fighting in the armed services or is in overalls, producing supplies and weapons for battlefronts all over the world. Millions of men and women are carrying out the tasks of civilian defense, salvaging, conserving, sacrificing, to win the war and make a peace better than any we've ever had before. Nor our peace, unless we understand whom we are fighting. That's why the War Production Board is presenting this series. That's what this series is about. Alvin Steinkopf, Associated Press correspondent, is here as eyewitness to the real stories which we've dramatized for you. This is a program of cruel, hard truth, not for the squeamish or the timid. This truth is ugly and at times horrible. This is the truth about our enemy. Our enemy holds these things to be self-evident, that all men are created unequal, that they are endowed by their Creator with inalienable virtues if they be Germans, and that they're fit only for slavery if they be not Germans. The Nazi theory of German racial superiority is completely false to scientific fact, yet in this idea of superiority, German superiority to all the other peoples of the earth, the Nazis see a weapon to crush the mind and soul, a weapon deadly as a gun. In a school in an Alsatian town on the border between France and Germany, a town recently taken over by the Reich, classes are held for the first time since the occupation.
This is a German school now, not a French school. You there. Stand up. What's your name?
Jacques, sir. Jacques Monet.
How old?
9.
French?
Yes, sir.
You, over there. Stand up.
You are speaking to me, Herr Professor?
What is your name?
Karl. Karl Bayer. 11 years old. German.
This is interesting. Here we have a pure-blooded German boy and a French boy.
I am only half French. My mother is German.
Oh, I made an error. Jacques is at least half a man. Or did you mean to imply that you were Karl's equal?
I don't know, sir. I only thought that...
Master Jacques, this is a school for German youth. Let me read something to you. Everything we admire on this earth is the creative product of only a few people, and perhaps originally of one race. You understand that? One race, one people.
Yes, sir.
Here it is in this book. Write it on the blackboard 400 times. Everything we admire in this earth is the creative product of...
Jacques, hurry with your shoes. You'll be late for school. It's 8:30.
The lace is knotted again. It's always getting knotted.
Well, bring it in here and I'll untie it. Only hurry.
Good morning, Marie.
Paul, what are you doing up in the morning?
Well, I just thought I'd like to see Jacques. You know how it is, Marie. Night after night in the factory, your life upside down. Never able to see your wife or child. It's been a month at least.
Paul, dear, you've taken all this so well. After they dismissed you?
Well, what's the good of going on teaching any longer? No, at least in a factory I can be truthful to myself.
Your hands so callous.
It's good for me, Marie. How's Jacques, huh?
Jacques?
Mm-hmm.
Only German occupation authorities keep the children in this town so busy with one thing and another. I seldom see Jacques.
Tell me, Marie, do all fathers miss their sons? Or is it because Jacques and I were such great friends? Hmm? Well, this morning anyway, it'll be just like old times when I was teaching at the university, won't it?
Yes, dear. Jacques, will you please hurry?
Yes, Mother.
Oh, Marie, they've made the university into a Gestapo headquarters. The director is using my old classroom for his office.
Where'd you hear that?
At the factory, some of the men were talking.
Jacques, your father will breakfast with us. Hurry.
I'm coming. Father, I'm glad to see you.
Well, I got up especially to see you. Now, give me a kiss, huh? That's the boy.
Oh, it's just like old times, isn't it, Mother?
Yes, Jacques. Oh, will you sit down, both of you, quick? This oatmeal isn't good when it's cool. No, it isn't much, but...
Oats for breakfast. 3 horses at a table, huh? Remember, Jacques, bacon, butter, eggs. Now, what's the matter, Jacques? Why don't you sit down?
My chair. You've got my chair.
Oh, I forgot, Paul. Jacques has adopted your chair. I hope you don't mind. After all, you're never here when he's here.
Well, a regular little National Socialist, huh? First I'm dispossessed of my chair at the university, and now at home. Is that what they teach you at school?
Jacques, eat your oatmeal.
I don't want any.
Well, what's the matter, son? Are you upset about the chair? If it'll make you feel any better, you can have it here.
Don't chide him, Paul. He's tired. Day and night they keep him running from one thing to another in the Alsatian Youth Organization.
But we haven't seen each other in ages. Come on, boy, talk to me. What did you learn in school?
Nothing.
Well, Jacques, what's the matter? You always told me.
Why don't you leave me alone?
Oh, Jacques. Darling, what is it?
Tell me. I said, tell me.
Well, in school I have to sit in the back of the room. I have to wait until the German boys get through eating before I can eat. I'm made to clean up the classroom. Just because my father is French, that's why.
Oh, I see. So they've begun, huh?
They hate me. They hate me because I'm half French. They say I'm inferior. I don't want to be laughed at. I don't like to be called inferior. Why couldn't you be German, too?
Jacques, you're speaking to your father.
Let him go on, Marie. What else, Jacques?
Nothing. I'm talking about it, and I'm not supposed to. I'll be punished.
Paul, this is horrible.
It's all right, Marie. Jacques will stop going to that school at once. I'll teach him at home if necessary.
No, please, Father. They'll come to see when I'm not at school, and when you tell them, they'll find out I talk. I'll be punished. And when I go back to school, it'll be worse. Don't do anything, Father, please.
Master race, inferior race. You don't believe this nonsense, do you, Jacques?
The professor keeps pointing me out as...
I ask you don't believe that nonsense, do you?
But he punishes me. The class laughs at me.
Jacques, listen to me. No, look at me.
Yes, Father.
We've always been friends, remember? You can trust me, can't you?
Yes, Father.
Jacques, the professor is lying to you. I used to be a professor myself, so I should know, shouldn't I?
That's what I told them in school. But they laughed. They beat me.
Paul, you've no right to hit him.
Violence is their weapon, Marie. Listen, son. They beat you because they're afraid. Afraid that you'll grow up and have a mind of your own. Afraid that someday you'll turn on them. You understand that, don't you?
Yes, sir. They can beat me all they want, but they'll never make me believe I'm inferior.
Good boy, Jacques. But be careful. No matter what they tell you in school, you act as if you agree with it. Even if they say all French people are two-headed monsters, agree with it. But inside, Jacques, in your mind, where they can't spy, why, there you'll know the real truth. Eh, Jacques?
Yes, Father. And could we maybe have a French history lesson like we used to? At school, we only learn about Hitler.
Yes, my boy, yes. Every morning, Jacques. I'll get up every morning. We'll begin with the French Revolution, the cradle of freedom, the heritage of France. Danton, Rousseau, Victor Hugo. Inferior, huh? No man is inferior to any other man. Only brutes are inferior, Jacques. Remember that. Mannheim, it's been such a long time.
2 years.
Well, come in and sit down, won't you?
Thank you.
Well, I hardly expected to see you. After you stopped teaching at the university, we lost track of you. And now, since the war, well, I know what's happened to all education. So I suppose you've been hit too, hmm?
I'm afraid you misunderstand the purpose of my visit, Monet.
Purpose? What purpose need an old colleague have? Oh, money. Well, we have only a little, but you're welcome.
No, not money. My fortunes have taken a turn for the better since I stopped teaching. National Socialism has taken advantage of my talents.
You... Oh, no, Mannheim, I don't believe it.
Monet, I might as well tell you. I've been appointed to a position in the Ministry of Education for Alsace and Lorraine.
You, Mannheim? Oh, I don't believe it. This is some new joke. Don't think I don't remember your joke.
Oh, sure. I'm still the faculty buffoon, if you like. Only this time the joke is loaded.
Oh, I see. You have changed.
Time doesn't make the difference, Monet. No, opportunity does. Interesting things happen to me now that I'm in the Ministry of Education, Monet. No one ever questions my teaching now as you used to. Yes, interesting things. For instance, yesterday I found a report along with other inconsequential items. A 12-year-old boy here in this village questions the racial superiority of the new order. Absurd, isn't it?
Well, if you mean the doctrines, yes, they are.
A child, a 12-year-old child. Obviously, someone has been tampering with him. Tampering with his, shall we say, specialized education.
What is the point of all this, Mannheim? What has it to do with me?
Only the name on the report. By the way, how is Jacques?
Well, Jacques is fine. Oh, Jacques.
I'm glad to hear he's well. Ordinarily, the Ministry of Berlin would be advised by me that the family be broken up and any further trouble avoided. In your case, however, Monet, I personally make an exception.
Oh, I see. Our old friendship, no doubt.
Oh, no. No. I have a little theory. That's why I make an exception in your case. The theory developed while playing second fiddle to you at the university. It's this. My intelligence has all along been superior to yours.
Did you discover this proof the same day you read Mein Kampf?
Don't antagonize me, Monet. No. The superior intelligence shows itself in the cunning that permits it to keep one's body comfortable, to stay alive. Not in dying for words like life, liberty, fraternity, the kind of words you're so fond of. You better not use them to your son.
My son will not be made to believe your kind of nonsense.
No?
No.
We won't argue the point. By the way, we're quartering many of our repatriated German youths in this district. Thought you might like to observe the benefits of our new education. So I've assigned one here. He'll be paid for his keep, of course.
A National Socialist in my house? No, Mannheim, no. Find him a stable.
You no longer teach, do you? You work in a factory. You have to make a living, don't you, Monet? After all, a man and a child, a man with a wife and a child to support, were in the proper place, and you'd be unemployed. You wouldn't like that, would you?
You know I can't fight you with such weapons. My family must eat.
The boy's outside. His name is Carl Bayer. I'll call him. Carl?
Yes, sir?
Step inside, please.
Yes, sir.
This gentleman is Paul Monet, Jacques' father. You'll live with these people until other arrangements can be made.
Yes, sir.
Now I must go. You understand what's expected of you?
My son cannot be corrupted. That's all that matters.
Be careful of your conduct, and you'll be left alone. Oh, incidentally, Carl, Herr Monet's education is most deficient in matters of race. He's French, you know. Perhaps you'll find time to instruct him,
I'll be glad to, sir.
The results should be very interesting. Eh, Professor?
Very.
See, Monet, I haven't really lost my sense of humor after all.
Jacques, your continued insubordination irritates me. This is a school, not a political forum. Your lack of gratitude for the education being given to you by the Reich is amazing. Give me your knuckles.
Not again, sir.
Repeat after me. There are inferior people and superior people.
There are inferior people.
Well, go on.
There are inferior people and superior people.
I am not German, therefore...
I am not German, therefore...
Therefore, I am inferior.
Therefore, I am inferior.
I have infinite patience, Jacques. Repeat it another 100 times, and every time you say the word inferior, rap your knuckles on that desk as hard as you can. You may begin.
Now you can get up off the floor. You hurt me, Carl. Of course I hurt you. I was trying to hurt you. Why don't you like me? Because you're inferior. All French are. You know that by now. Yes, but in my case, it's only half true. How can a thing be only half true? I'm only half French. That's the cowardly part in you, the French part. If you were all German, you could cut me to pieces just as easily as I could do it to you. I wouldn't like that. You'd like it, all right. If he was my father, I'd hate him. couldn't help use French any more than you could help your German.
Well, that's too bad, that's all.
My mother doesn't mind.
Of course she minds. She must mind. She's German.
Doc! Doc! Carl!
There he is. We're here, Herr Monette.
Oh, here you are. I heard a scream as I came down the street. What happened?
Nothing, Father. Carl was showing me how the Germans marched through Flanders.
Oh, really? And why were you screaming? Carl wasn't hitting you, was he?
No. Oh, no, I wouldn't hit Jacques. Oh, no, sir. I was pretending. I was a peasant being bombed.
Oh, I see.
You don't approve, Herr Monet?
Of what? National Socialism?
No, the German army. As a Frenchman, you should admire the German army.
Oh, I see. And physical strength is always the sign of a superior race?
Yes, sir. Herr Mannheim asked me to instruct you, and so
I see. Well, far be it from me to interfere with Herr Mannheim's curriculum.
You're joking with me.
Father, please don't laugh at Carl, please.
Oh, why not, John?
Father, please, you're only making it hard for me.
You stay out of this, John. Oh, Carl, I wonder if you'd mind if I asked a question. You're so typical of the Nazi youth, I'd like to know.
Well, if it deals with the subject of race or history...
How old are you, Carl?
11.
Who's your father?
I have no father.
Come, Carl, even Germans have fathers.
I have no father. What is the good of all this questioning, anyway? I'm not permitted to answer questions about myself.
Why, Carl?
Well, they told me not to, that's why. I do what I'm told.
Yes, but why? Are you ashamed of your father?
Yes, you know why. You know my father.
Yes, I do. How is he, Carl?
I don't know. I haven't seen him. I never will.
But he was a German, wasn't he?
Yes.
And Germans are superior people, aren't they?
Yes, but...
But he fought with the French, didn't he? He was a German and fought with the French. Why?
You're just trying to mix me up.
Carl, you're already mixed up. But you see, it's not your fault. Don't you see, boys, it's the things they've taught you. Well, who could help but be mixed up?
You leave him alone, Father.
Jacques.
He didn't mean it, Carl.
Jacques, don't be frightened.
I want him to like me. I want him to like me. And they won't treat me like I was inferior. Don't say any more, Father. Please don't.
Oh, my God, what are they doing to you? Jacques, you promised me.
Carl is my friend, do you hear? Carl is my friend.
I will tell Herr Meinheim you made fun of the Fuhrer theories. Come on, Jacques.
Jacques, you're not going to go along?
I have to.
Jacques, I'm your father.
Yes, Father.
What's happening to you, boy? You aren't beginning to believe all this nonsense, are you? Not after all I've taught you.
Carl, wait for me. Carl, wait for me.
Jacques, come back here. Jacques.
He was here again, wasn't he, Paul?
Mannheim, yes, he was here.
What did he say?
He laughed at me. He said I was only proving how right his theory was. A fool with ideals, he called me. Hoisting myself on my own petard.
Paul.
Well, he's right, of course, according to the great god Hitler. They consider men like me a fool. We spurn comfort. We struggle against bestiality. You see, Marie, it's the whole struggle of the human race all over again. All for an ideal. Well, let me be a fool, then. I'd rather die a human being than live like an animal.
I'm glad you feel that way.
Marie, thank God the German authorities are sending Karl to Munich. You know, he's done such terrible things to Jacques.
Paul, could we go away? All of us. There must be some way.
I have thought about it, Marie. You remember that farmer in the Ruhr, the one who was going to Vichy? I've done him many favors, and I know he's willing to do this one for me. Then from Vichy, the way to Portugal is easy. Then to America. Why don't we try it, Marie?
Oh, Paul, we must.
But there's one thing. Don't tell this to Jacques until we're ready. Jacques is getting to the point where he believes their rotten doctrine. There's so many of them to affirm it and so few of us to deny it. He watches me suspiciously.
They teach him to spy on us in school. He's told me so.
Well, we must make our plans accordingly. But remember, Marie, not a word to Jacques.
Hurry with that packing, Jacques. My train for Munich leaves in an hour. Oh, hurry. I wish I could go with you to Munich. Munich is reserved for National Socialists. The state school there where I'm going is the largest in the world. I will meet all our great leaders there. Possibly see the Fuhrer himself. If I can't go to Munich, maybe sometime I can go somewhere else. You'll never go any place. You'll always have to stay right here. I suppose so. But if you didn't have a French father, would it be any different if I didn't, Carl? Then could I... Maybe. Once I heard of a boy with an English father who was allowed to become a full German. Only his father was dead. There. It's all finished. Is there anything else to pack for you? There's some more things in that drawer there. Hurry! There isn't any more room in this bag. What'll I do, tie them in paper? Your father has a suitcase, doesn't he? He has two. Well, get one of those then. He's not going to need them. He's not going anywhere. It's in his room. I'll get it right away. Hurry up. I don't want to miss that train.
Shut the door, Jacques.
Father, I didn't know you were...
Shut the door. And what are you looking for?
A suitcase. Carl is... Why, there it is. Father, you've got both of them filled with food. You can't do that. That's against the law, Horton.
Jacques, don't prattle like that. Just go away and pretend you never saw it.
But it's against the law.
Oh, all right, if you must know. Look, Jacques, we're planning to leave Alsace. You and your mother and I. We're going to America, Jacques.
But that's against the law. Hitler...
Jacques, you've turned into a parrot. You say the same things over and over again. It's against the law. But you see, Jacques, it must be done. It must be done, you understand?
You're running away.
We're going away.
I won't go with you.
Jacques, please don't talk like that.
You're running away because you're afraid.
Jacques, stop it.
You're afraid.
Jacques! Jacques, I'm sorry.
You'll be sorry. You'll be sorry you slapped me.
Jacques, please understand. I couldn't help it. You were raving.
You hit me. You're just like them.
Please, Jacques, don't say things like that.
But they're strong. And you're weak just like they say. You're afraid to hit them. But you hit me. You're inferior.
Jacques, please listen to me.
I don't want to talk to you. I've got to go now. Carl's waiting for me.
Jacques, listen. I understand. You're unhappy. You're confused. They're trying to make you like they are, but look, we'll go away. You, Mother, and I, and... No, close that door and listen to me, Jacques.
No. Carl is waiting for
Jacques!
me. Oh, there you are, Jacques. Well, where's the suitcase? I couldn't find it. Oh, never mind. Oh, I just remembered. This boy with the English father. They shot the father, and then, because his mother was German, they made the boy a full German, too. What are you crying about? If I were a full German, would you be my friend? Sure, Jacques, sure. We could have a lot of fun then.
Can't imagine what happened to Jacques. He never stayed away this long before.
He'll be back, Marie. He went to see Carl off on the train.
Paul, you're keeping something from me. What is it?
It's nothing.
I know better, Paul. Is it about Jacques? Tell me.
He found me storing our food in the suitcases. He had a talk with Carl. Maybe he...
Oh, no, Paul. Oh, not Jacques. He wouldn't.
But I hit him, Marie.
Hit Jacques? Oh, no, Paul.
I couldn't help myself. Oh, Marie, they've won and we've lost.
Not Jacques. He's our son.
They've won, I tell you. He's only a baby. You can't expect him to escape the habits of behavior they've drilled into him.
What do we do?
There's your answer.
Paul.
Let them in.
Paul, no.
Can you think of an alternative?
Mr. Hermann, I won't bother to introduce these gentlemen with me. They are Gestapo. You know that. This boy you know also. We found him at the station weeping. He misses Carl so.
Hello, Jacques.
Aren't you going to say hello to your father, Jacques?
Why don't you let him alone? Can't you see he's frightened? Haven't you heard him and twisted him enough?
Very touching. French sentiment.
What do you want here? What have you brought our son here for?
I think I know.
Yes. You see, I was right after all, wasn't I, Monet? The boy here knows that the important thing is to remain comfortably alive. I knew you'd trap yourself.
I have no argument. Because your only answer would be terror.
At last, the great Paul Monet discovers that terror is the answer to all questions. Too bad you didn't think of it before the Führer did. These men have an order for your arrest and execution as an enemy of the state.
Oh, no. No, why? Why?
You can't prove anything. Nothing you could use as proof, even in one of your own mock courts.
Oh, really, Monet? Jacques?
Yes, sir.
Is this man an enemy of the state?
I don't know. I don't know what he is. He's my father.
Is he trying to leave occupied country? Well, is he?
Yes.
Jacques, for the love of heaven.
No, Frau Monet. I call you Frau since you'll be visiting Germany with your son very soon. He will testify to anything. You can see that. Well, we really don't need proof. But whenever we can find it, we use it. It kind of frosts the cake. You see how successful the new education is, Monet.
Jacques, you know what you've done.
Of course he doesn't.
I don't care. I don't care. He's inferior. My father's inferior.
So help me. That is the world of the enemy, for I have seen it. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Alvin Steinkopf. Ladies and gentlemen, the utterly ludicrous delusions of racial grandeur under which the Nazis labor would be almost amusing were it not criminal folly to lose sight of the danger they hold for us and for the entire world. This moment of the world's history, we can all recognize what was apparent to all too few people some years ago. That although a single lunatic who thinks he's Napoleon may be harmless, even picturesque, a whole nation gone mad with racial pride and armed with a mighty war machine must be crushed before we can even hope for a decent life for ourselves or any other people. I've seen the Nazis use this hideous doctrine of the master race as the justification for oppression and unspeakable cruelty to individuals and whole nations. The Nazi is not only uninterested in the commandment to love his neighbor, he further makes the assumption that his neighbor is vermin and should be treated as such. This Nazi concept has taken a toll of human misery that staggers the imagination. As you heard tonight, the Nazis have sought to use this doctrine of German racial superiority as a two-edged weapon. A weapon to kill forever the hope of resurrection among their conquered people and to convince them that slavery is their natural and inevitable lot.
NBC's Inter-American University of the Air presents the fourth chapter of Lands of the Free. The story of restraint of trade in 17th century Spanish America and the struggle of one man against monopoly.
Get to work there. Get those mules packed. The caravan leaves in 10 minutes.
Francisco de Fonseca.
Yes, Father Florentine?
Why do you persist in making this journey to Spain?
Father, nothing can keep me here in Buenos Aires. Nothing. I will never let Manuel Saavedra out of my sight until I see him dead.
But do you not know why Manuel is going to Spain?
I don't care why he's going. Where he goes, I go.
Manuel is going to Seville to plead before the Casa de Contratación to get permission from the monopoly to bring back to Buenos Aires the healing bark of the quina quina tree and give it freely to all who have the fever. He has a noble purpose. Francisco, stay here in Buenos Aires. Do nothing that will harm Manuel Saavedra on this journey.
Harm him? Father Florentine, I will stick to him until I destroy him. Pedro! Bertito! Catch those mules! The caravan is ready to go!
Long ago and far away, Buenos Aires, struggling for existence under the severe laws of Spain that restricted trade. Yet not so far from us today, for the existence of the entire modern world depends on trade. Trade we see restricted today by conditions of war. When we win this war, when we destroy the menace of the submarine and Axis piracy, when we secure once more the freedom of the seas, we will win the peace by freeing trade for everyone. We look forward to a better future for the world with President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Churchill in the words of the Atlantic Charter, the Charter of Freedom.
Point number 4 of the Charter of Freedom.
The enjoyment by all states, great or small, victor or vanquished, of access on equal terms to the trade and to the raw materials of the world which are needed for their economic prosperity.
Freedom of trade.
The promise of the Charter of Freedom. We are not the first to look forward to freedom of trade. During the long 300 years of Spain's control of the fate of Spanish America, the law of Spain restricted trade to a monopoly by the merchants of Seville. At Seville sat the Royal Board of Trade, the Casa de Contratación, whose control over New World commerce was absolute and final. Every cargo, every article of clothing, hardware, machinery, every bottle of wine, every ounce of medicine was registered with, valued by, and paid tax to the Casa de Contratación. And all goods coming back from the New World were brought by law to Seville, and their sale regulated for the trade monopoly of the merchants of Seville. That was the law. But there were men who tried to change the law. Our story opens in the city of Buenos Aires, capital of the Spanish province of La Plata, in the year 1640. There's been this year a plague of malaria. A young woman, Dolores Maria Saavedra, is dying. Outside her door, her brother, Manuel de Saavedra, is talking with a priest.
My sister is young, Father. The most beautiful person who ever lived. It isn't right that she should die.
Yeah. We could save your sister if there were time.
What do you mean, Father?
There is the bark of the quina quina tree, cinchona bark. You grind it to a powder and dissolve it in wine.
Yes?
2 years ago in Lima, this bark saved the life of the Countess of Chinchon. In Spain, they are using it now to cure malaria.
Father Florentine, where can we get this cinchona bark?
Only from Seville.
Only from Seville? But if the Countess used it in Lima?
The quina quina tree, Manuel, grows in Peru, but the bark must be sent to the Casa de Contratación at Seville, where the Spanish merchants have the monopoly of making this medicine.
But we cannot send to Seville and wait 2 years for the medicine to come back.
That is the only way, Manuel, under the law.
Under the law? Is that a just law? Do you call that justice?
My son, it is sometimes difficult to see.
Doctor.
My boy, I am sorry, very sorry. There was nothing we could do.
We might have saved her. We could have saved her. Father Florentine, before you I make my oath. I will go to Spain. I will see the king. I will change this law. Never will I cease until I have broken this monopoly and made this remedy available to everyone.
I pray that you will succeed, Manuel. But now, we have other things to think of. We must prepare for the cathedral. are not alone.
Who is it, Father?
Coming down the aisle.
Francisco de Fonseca.
Be calm, my son.
Calm. Fonseca, what are you doing here in the cathedral?
I have come for my bride.
You have come to desecrate my sister's funeral.
I would have been married to your sister Saavedra if you had not tried to poison her heart against me.
At least I kept her from you.
You killed her.
Francisco.
Francisco Fonseca. I will not violate this holy spot by killing you. I loved my sister. She might have lived. There is a medicine that might have cured her. But because of the laws that govern trade, we do not have that medicine in Buenos Aires. I am going to correct those laws. When I have done that, I will return and settle this with you.
Do you think you can avoid me? Listen, Manuel Saavedra. Where you go, I go. I will stick to you like a leech until I have worn you down and have destroyed you for what you have done to me.
Francisco, you cannot mean
Wait
that.
for me, my bride. Wait for me. I will avenge your death.
Come back, you.
Manuel, let him go.
But, Father, he is approaching the bier of my sister.
Wait, Manuel. He loved your sister. Can you hate him for that?
I do hate him for that.
Hate is a poison, my son. Hate will keep you from the work you've sworn to do. You have no time for hate. You must think now only of your journey to Spain.
A journey to Spain to change the laws of trade. And what an almost endless journey. In order to control the trade of the New World, Spain forbade the ships of any country but her own to visit the harbors of her colonies. And not even her own ships were allowed to visit Buenos Aires. Once a year, a great fleet of Spanish galleons made for Porto Bello on the Isthmus of Panama. The goods they brought were carried by mule across the isthmus to Panama City on the Pacific. There, by boat, they went south to Callao, the port of Lima, Peru. From Lima, goods for Buenos Aires were carried over the Andes Mountains to Bolivia, then on to Paraguay, and finally, after months of travel, down to Buenos Aires. Thus, to make the journey to Spain, Manuel de Saavedra had to go west instead of east, to meet the galleons at Porto Bello. More than 2,000 miles and 300 days of unnecessary journey, but that was the law that governed trade, the law that restricted trade. The caravan assembled in the great square of the marketplace in Buenos Aires. Sure-footed mules with heavy packs, ranchmen and merchants, soldiers in gleaming breastplate and helmet to protect the caravan. In the busy, noisy crowd at the marketplace, Francisco de Fonseca was busy, too, as his friend Eduardo approached.
Francisco de Fonseca, wait a minute. Oh, hello there, Eduardo. I'm busy.
Hey, Francisco, they told me you were going with the caravan to Porto and on to Lima and then to Spain. Francisco, what has come over you? You are working.
Oh, Eduardo, don't bother me now. I must get this cargo of cattle hides packed on the mules.
Ah, I see. You are too important now to talk to your old friends, huh? All right, then. If you are leaving, where's the 100 pesos you lost to me at Dice 3 weeks ago?
I have it here for you, my friend.
And the money you owe Martinez for the wine shop we broke into. And the money for the pretty barmaid.
Don't speak to me of women, Eduardo.
Oh, but Francisco, the girl who sang the song.
Go to the devil, you swine. You son of a swine. Here is 1,000 reales. Pay the debts of a waster. Now, get out.
But, Francisco...
Get out. Get out.
All right, but you don't own the marketplace.
Come on, men. Get to work. Get those mules packed. The caravan leaves in 10 minutes.
Francisco de Fonseca.
Yes, Father Florentine?
Why do you persist in making this trip to Spain?
Father, I will never let Manuel de Saavedra out of my sight until I see him dead.
But you know why Manuel is going to Spain. He's going to plead for permission to bring back the bark of the quinaquina tree, to give it freely to all who have the fever. He has a noble purpose. Francisco, stay here in Buenos Aires. Do nothing that will harm Manuel de Saavedra.
Harm him? Father Florentine, I will stick to him until I destroy him.
Then I shall go along on this journey with you two. My son, what do you expect to gain through hate?
Father, I loved his sister. If it had not been for him,
So you intend to haunt him. Will that bring Dolores back?
Father, that is my business. Pedro. Bertito. Pack those mules. Hurry, hurry. We must join the caravan for Porto.
A Across the pampas of La Plata winds the slow-moving caravan. And now up the slopes of the Andes, on to the city of Silva, to Potosí in Bolivia. Here for a short time the caravan rests and business is done. In the marketplace, Saavedra approaches Francisco de Fonseca.
I hear you have done a good trading here in Potosí, Fonseca.
That's my business, Saavedra.
Why don't you stay here in Potosí, Fonseca? With your profits, you could get a good silver mine. Work it, make a fortune, have all the wine, women, and song
You
desire.
hate me no more than I hate you, Manuel Saavedra. Why do we talk about it? I have business to do.
And you, Manuel, you have completed your business?
Yes, Father Florentine. I have sold here at the mines 1,000 head of sheep.
And what do you carry on to Spain?
Money, Father, to buy cinchona bark for the sick.
And something else?
Nothing.
You carry hate.
That is my affair, Father.
Yours and your conscience.
Very well. I hate Fonseca. He hates me.
It is his conscience he hates, Manuel, just as you hate yours.
Well, what are you waiting for, Saavedra? Trying to escape me? The caravan is moving. We're on our way to Cusco. We can't wait all day for you. Come on.
On to Cusco, ancient city of the Incas. Then down the western slopes of the Andes to Lima, capital of the Viceroy of Peru. 2,000 miles of travel. At Callao, the port of Lima, they board the treasure galleon bound northward along the Pacific coast for Panama. 30 days under sail. And at last, the ship carrying Saavedra, Fonseca, and Father Florentine arrives in the harbor at Panama City.
Good morning, Father Florentine. Have a good night.
Oh, a splendid night, thank you, Francisco. It's a nice morning to be in port.
Yes, it'll feel good to get on solid land again. Oh, but now I must get to work and see that my hides are unloaded. You know, I'll feel like Balboa.
Yes.
We're going to cross Panama to Puerto Bello.
Fonseca!
Saavedra, I knew the morning was too nice to last.
Fonseca, look behind you.
What is it?
A ship. A galleon from Manila.
Yes, and loaded with silk and spice and jade and treasure from the Far East.
Father, they will be carrying their cargo across to Puerto Bello at the same time we will. They will take every porter and every mule in sight.
Well, I've got to get busy here. I've got to get somebody to carry my hides. Oh, the sweat and the heat.
Steady, Francisco, steady.
Oh, Father, it's not the load on my back. It's the heat that bears me down.
Yeah. Let me carry that a while, Fonseca.
What?
I will be glad to give you a hand.
Stay away from me.
Have it your own way, fool.
It was offered in kindness, Francisco.
I would carry 10 loads across this isthmus before I took kindness from...
Here, my son. Let me take your load a little way. We'll be at Puerto Bello very soon.
At last, Puerto Bello, on the Caribbean shore of Panama. Puerto Bello, a mud-hole village 11 months of the year. And then the galleons arrive from Spain, and merchants of Peru, of Ecuador, of Chile, and Argentina come by hundreds, by thousands, to sell their treasure and to buy the goods from Spain. Day and night, Puerto Bello is a market. Puerto Bello is a fair. Puerto Bello is a mad fiesta, overcrowded, disease-ridden, but exciting. Father Florentine, Saavedra, and Fonseca enter a tavern looking for something to eat.
Manuel, Francisco, here is the table. What luck.
I could eat a cow. I could eat a sheep. I could eat 3 horses. Waiter! Waiter! No, you'll never be heard in this place, Saavedra. Here's the bill of fare. See what you want.
You will want wine, I know that.
I'll drink nothing, Saavedra, with you.
Perhaps if we found you a dancing girl?
Saavedra, I'll split your skull out.
Quiet, Fonseca.
Right, son. This is fiesta time. We have been on our journey now for a whole year. Come now, let us order some food.
Well, all right.
Look at the prices of food in this place. In Buenos Aires, you can feed a family for a whole week for the price of a pair of lamb chops in this tavern.
Look what they want for chicken. And probably an old crow at that.
Boys, do you know what we are paying for our beds?
How much, Father?
The town is so crowded, it took me 4 hours to find any place at all. I had to pay 2 weeks in advance, whether we stay there or not. And it's 10 pesos.
For the three of us?
For 2 weeks?
No, for each of us, for each night.
30 pesos? Times 14 nights? You mean you paid 420 pesos?
You must have rented a palace.
It is part of a little stable for sheep. Each of us has a sack of straw to lie on. And there are 12 other people in this stable with us.
Perdone, gentlemen, perdone, your order, please. And here is your wine. We haven't ordered any wine. Oh, sir, I would advise you to drink the wine. During the fair, the town is very crowded, and it is not very sanitary. Last week, 300 people died of the fever, and that was before the fair opened.
We will take the wine, waiter. Come back in a minute for our order.
Very well, sir. Here, I'll pour it. Well, Saavedra, if you can bring cinchona bark to this place at fair time, you'll be doing something worthwhile for once in your life.
Father, what sort of a pest hole is this anyway?
What can you expect, Manuel? For an entire hemisphere, the Crown sends us 30 ships once a year. 30 ships, when 300 would be barely enough.
What does he mean, ladies? There aren't any women here.
Donatelli, the famous magician, the wizard from Venice.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present the Queen of Sheba, Scheherazade. Look at that girl. Look at her dance.
She's beautiful.
What did he call her?
Scheherazade.
Look at her.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening. Honored by your presence.
Are you really Donatelli the magician?
Why, of course I am. Would you like magic? It is yours. Abracadabra. Rama. Ava. Take.
What happened to the wine bottle? Where did it go? There was a bottle here.
Why, Father, you are hiding the bottle right under your cassock. Allow me. Here we are.
I will take the wine if you do not mind.
Not at all, Father. The wine is yours. Good evening, gentlemen. A pleasure to have met you.
How did he do it?
I don't know. It was like a miracle.
And what happened to the dancing girl?
Do you think he made her disappear? Father, what happened to the girl?
I do not know, Manuel, but something more important has disappeared.
What, Father?
Inside my cassock, I had our money. What? Your money, Manuel, for the sheep you sold at Portici. Your money, Francisco, for the mules you sold. Also your bills of lading for the hides. They are gone.
Donatelli.
When he reached into your cassock for the wine.
Thief! Thief!
Out with your sword, Saavedra.
I am with you, Fonseca.
Come on.
Wait for us, Father. Come on, friend. He went through that door. He can't make himself disappear.
Where are they, Saavedra?
Look out, Fonseca. It is dark in here.
All right, men. Break this sky.
Where are we?
I don't know. There's a little window, very high with bars. All right, you two, on your feet. What do you want? What do I want? It's the governor of Panama who wants my filthy young friends. He's calling for you and for the rest of the roisterers left over from the end of the fair. The end of the fair? Come along now. No nonsense. Saavedra, here, let me help you. Lean on me.
We must help each other. If we don't, Fonseca.
If we don't, we're lost.
Come on, there. The governor is waiting. He'll deal with you.
Any more clamor, and I shall clear the courtroom. Continue with your story, gentlemen.
Your Excellency, I swear there is no more to say.
We arrived in Portobello, sat down in a tavern for dinner.
A strange magician stole our money. We ran after him.
And we came to only to find that the fleet had sailed for Spain.
And there we were, Your Excellency, in a dungeon.
A likely story?
Your Excellency, by all that's good, it's the truth.
You had a little money?
Yes?
You drank a little wine,
Only a glass apiece?
brought by a strange waiter in a strange tavern.
But, Your
And
Excellency...
this was your first trip to Porto Bello. Just what was your business here in Porto Bello?
Well, Your Excellency, we were hoping to take the ship to Spain.
To Spain? And why, may I ask, were you going to Spain?
Your Excellency, there is a plague in Buenos Aires. People are dying of malaria. There is a medicine that can cure them. It is cinchona bark from the quina quina tree. It grows in Peru. But we cannot buy it in Peru. The law says that we have to send all the way to Spain to get it, because under the law, the merchants of Seville have a monopoly. I was going to Spain to plead with the Casa de Contratación and get permission to bring that medicine back to Buenos Aires.
Mm-hmm. So that's what you'd have me believe. And your companion?
Your Excellency, I started this journey to harm my friend. Now I want to help him.
To help him? Mm-hmm. Has either of you anything more to say?
I think we have said everything that can be said, Your Excellency.
Well, I haven't. Your Excellency, as long as we live under laws like that, justice is a mockery. And I dare to say that even in the court of the governor of Panama.
Francisco.
Are you finished?
Yes, Your Excellency.
Very well. Young men of Buenos Aires, for all your effort, you've lost your money, gotten a sound beating, and spent 2 weeks in jail. 2 noble young men. But such young men. You think you can change the trade laws of the world? Do you think you can appear before the learned council of the Indies and tell them what laws are just?
But, Your Excellency...
Silence! It so happens, young men, that the law says that a product of a viceroyalty, such as the viceroyalty of Peru, can be sold only within that viceroyalty or to the merchants from Spain. Henceforth, you will abide by that law. Call Father Florentine.
Father
Florentine? Here? What is he doing here?
Yes, Your Excellency.
Father, these are the 2 young men for whom you've been searching?
They are, Your Excellency.
I will suspend sentence for disorderly conduct. And for their other crimes, I put them in your custody. You'd better take them back to Buenos Aires. Here is my written order. You'd better take it with you.
I'm so tired.
Here, my 2 young friends. Sit down on this rock beside the road.
Oh, Father, I ache all over.
What a beating we took.
What a beating is right. Here we are, ordered to leave Portobello and go home, and not a centavo to our names.
Our money gone. Even the hides I sweated to carry over the isthmus on a galleon for Spain, and the magician has the bills of lading.
My son, I have something to tell you. I reached the magician a little late, but I reached him.
Reached him? What do you mean, Father?
Oh, like a diligent priest, I heard his confession and made him restore to me the stolen property.
Our money?
You have our money?
Yes, and even the bills of lading for Francisco's hide.
Francisco, did you hear?
The hides and the money.
Francisco, I am so happy for you.
And, Manuel, I have something for you.
For me?
The order the governor gave me as we were leaving the court.
Is it important, Father? What is it?
Written permission, Manuel, for you to purchase in Lima all the cinchona bark you want, to bring it back to Buenos Aires. You do not have to go to Spain to get it. You can buy it right in the city of Lima.
Permission to buy in Lima? But if it is against the law...
The governor told you that the products of a viceroyalty may be sold within that viceroyalty. Buenos Aires is in the province of La Plata, which is part of the viceroyalty of Peru. With that interpretation of the law, it is permissible to buy in Peru and to sell in Buenos Aires. All you need is that interpretation by the governor.
Francisco, do you hear? Francisco? That is the 2nd time you have called me Francisco. Manuel, let us be friends.
Hey! You 3 on the road! Look out! Here comes the caravan back to the Pacific coast!
Francisco.
They're going home. Manuel, what are we waiting for?
Let us join them, my son. Let us return to Buenos Aires. We have accomplished what we set out to do. You have done a great thing for the freedom of trade. Best of all, you have conquered hate and suspicion. That is the beginning of all freedom.
Long ago and far away, the colonies of Spain in the early 17th century. And today, a short 300 years later, the renewed need for a charter of freedom, the pledge of access by all nations, great and small, on equal terms to the trade and raw materials of the world. Years have passed since the days of our story. Significant events in that time which have changed conditions of trade include, first, the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, which gave England an opportunity to open colonial markets to consumer goods. Second, the development of sails and steamships. Third, the naming of La Plata as the viceroyalty in the year 1777, with its subsequent freeing of the Buenos Aires trade. Fourth, the revolution of the United States of America with its ideals of freedom of trade. Fifth, the revolt and independence of the Spanish colonies. And sixth, the development of great international organizations for investment and exportation throughout the Americas. And now, confidently, we look forward to freedom of trade throughout the world when we have won this war and the peace that follows.
And that's the way it was the 2 weeks ending August 1st, 1942. My name is Henry Chopp. Let me give you a reminder to come back in the next 2 weeks, not next week, but 2 weeks from tonight. And we are going to feature This Nation at War, the story of shipbuilders, NBC News, a bond wagon, the Cavalcade of America, and Hello Mom. So some great stuff 2 weeks from now, as we spotlight the weeks ending August 14th, 1942. So generally the first 2 weeks in August. So some great radio coming up. Until then, my name is Henry Chopp. Let's turn off this old tube radio. That's our time machine. Good night. God bless.
This changing world, this changing scene, where is it taking us? What does it mean? As long as we're certain of each other, we know we don't have to be afraid. These changing times we rise above. We have no time for them. We have our love, and love is the only thing that still remains the same through all this change.